Okay, we will start our webinar today. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's very wonderful to see you here. I think we have amazing opportunities to bring us together. For your information, today we have three series of international webinar, and today is the first session of international webinar series held by Faculty of Economics, Universitas Sriwijaya. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy this webinar. So I will introduce myself. My name is Lina Dameria Siregar. You can call me Lina as your host today. First of all, I want to say welcome to the International Webinar Series number 1, How to Write a Research Paper and Publication. But first of all, I want to inform you some information about our do and don't during webinar. The first is have a comfortable place to sit. And the second, please use headphones if you are staying with other people. And the third is please activate the, web, the webcam during webinar. And the fourth is please do not activate the audio to prevent noise. And the fifth is please use your own personal identity or your own full name on your Zoom profile. And the sixth is if you have questions, please raise your hands or write down in the Q&A features. And the seventh is e-certificates are only given to the participants who attend the webinar until the end. And next, chat room is only allowed for communication about material, about the topics, about the questions, ideas, or opinions. Next, e-certificates, material, and links will be shared at the end of our webinar. And then the last, e-certificates are only given to the participants who fill the webinar feedback questionnaires, and your time is only about 30 minutes after the end of the webinar. Okay, before we start, for the participant who cannot join us by Zoom, you can also join us to this webinar by YouTube Live. Thank you. And before we start, the first rundown of our webinar today is opening remarks or welcome speech by the head of Management Department, Faculty of Economics, Mrs. Isni Andriana, MPhil PhD. To Mrs. Isni Andriana, MPhil PhD, the time is yours.
Thank you, host. Assalamualaikum. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues. First of all, let me say how pleased I am to see so many of you gather here for this webinar. Your presence here is a reflection of your interest in this webinar, that I'm convinced that the presence of all you here will contribute to the value discussion with the speakers. So my presence here represents the Dean of Economic Faculty, Universitas Sriwijaya, who was unable to join us due to a meeting at the same time with this webinar. So today we have with us a speaker whom I have no hesitation in describing as exceptional, and it is honors for me to welcome Dr. Benedict Valentine Arulanandam, PhD. Is it correct, Doctor?
Yes. Yes.
From Sunway College, Malaysia. Welcome, Doctor. We are delighted and honored to host the international webinar about how to write a research paper and publication. It is organized as part of event of international webinar in economic faculty Universitas Sriwijaya. This webinar is principally designed to enhance our skill in the research field, and this webinar is one of the important steps to develop our skill in research and publication during the COVID-19 pandemic period. In a closing, I wish to express my gratitude to all participants for their full cooperation and contribution to this webinar. I take this opportunity to thank the speaker and organizer. I wish you a very fruitful and productive webinar. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let's begin. Host, your turn. Host. Where's the host? Hello, host.
Okay, and next we will continue our webinar today to our webinar sessions. And this webinar session will be led by our moderator, Mr. Dr. Muhammad Iksan Hajri, MM. For your information, he is an assistant professor of Faculty of Economics, Universitas Sriwijaya. He had experience as speaker and moderator for several international conferences, and he ever got 3 awards as the winner of Best Paper Award in international conferences in USA, Russia, and South Korea. So please welcome Mr. Dr. Muhammad Iksan Hadri, MM. The time is yours.
Thank you for the host. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For our distinguished speaker, Dr. Benedict Valentin Arulananda, PhD from Sunway College, Malaysia, the Honorable Head of Department of Management, Faculty of Economics, Universitas Sriwijaya, Mrs. Isni Andriana, MPhil, PhD, the Honorable host and MC of our event, come to all participants. First of all, we'd like to thank you for gathering here in this platform and welcome to International Webinar Series 1 with the topic How to Write a Research Paper and Publications. We hope with attending this scientific webinar will be a great opportunity to learning and sharing about how to write a research paper and publications. It is a very great experience and opportunity for all the participants. For the participant who wants to ask a question, you can write in the chat room or raise hand in the Zoom platform in a discussion forum after the speaker give the public lecture. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have our honorable speaker for this session. I will read a short bio of our speaker. Our speaker is Dr. Benedict Valentin Arulananda, PhD, has been in the Malaysian corporate arena for more than 2 decades, spanning from manufacturing, education, biotechnology, and banking industry. In the academic field, he has close to 12 years of experience conducting lectures and seminars. From a humble beginning, Dr. Benedict completed his degree from the United Kingdom and by God's grace, completed his master in finance from Australia, University of Southern Queensland, while working in the corporate sector. While serving as an invited speaker with the University of Syracuse MBA visits to Malaysia, Dr. Benedict identified his calling in the field of academics. Hence, he embarked upon his Doctor of Philosophy or PhD with University Putra Malaysia, Putra Business School. While serving with a local bank in the capacity of head of department, Dr. Benedict completed his PhD in the field management and finance. Dr. Benedict now serves as a senior lecturer in Victoria University, Melbourne undergraduate program with the Sunway Education Group in Selangor, Malaysia. Apart from his publications, Dr. Benedict has also co-authored several manuals on financing planning, conducted talks on financial management and taxation in several institutions or higher learning in Malaysia. He also presents paper in international conference. In 2017, he was one of the recipients of the Harvard Travel Grant awarded by Jeffrey Cheah Institute on Southeast Asia with Harvard University, Boston, USA. He is also a member of Athens Institute of Education and Research, Greece. Dr. Benedict possesses strong leadership, excellent problem-solving skill, effective team building know-how, and good project management attributes. He has special interest in financial management, financial literacy, corporate governance or ethics, corporate anthropology, social responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, to shorten the time, we beg the willingness of our speaker, Dr. Benedict Valentin Arulanandam, PhD, to deliver the public lecture. To Dr. Benedict, the time is yours.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much to Dr. Isni Adriana, and Dr. Muhammad Ishan. Thank you so much. And to our host, Ms. Lina, thank you so much. I'm so humbled to be here today. And a very good morning to all of you. I just would like to check, is my voice clear? Is my voice clear? Yeah, yeah. Yes. All right. So, okay, great.
Yes, clear,
great.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for inviting me. As I said, I'm so humbled and to be here and to see all of you. You know, you hold a great future, and furthermore, I'm so pleased to know what little I can to share with you. I'm not an expert, but I just share from my heart and from my experience to all of you. Now I'd like to share my slides. I go to slide screen. Yeah. Just give me a minute. Yeah. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Doctor, it's clear, right? It's clear.
Yes, doctor. Please
Very
continue.
good. Yeah, very good. Excellent. So today we're going to look at how to write a research paper and publication. Now, I'm sure in the past you have attended similar seminars, and perhaps you have also read several articles or books in this area. I'm just going to give you what is important, and some of it you could have repeated, right? It doesn't matter. So because at least we are learning something here. Right. Basically, you're looking at what is research. We all know research is systematic collection, analysis, and interpretation. Now, let's examine now the word systematic collection. What do you mean by systematic collection? It basically means that it is a particular methodology. In other words, a research is very much organized. You can't just pluck something out and just do some. No, it must be organized. In other words, it must be based on your observation, based on the published data, based on journal writing or article writing, and also based on the need of the day. Now, there are basic research and applied research. But today, the world is tilting towards applied research rather than basic research. While basic research is important, but they are now moving away from basic to applied. Now, what does that mean? It means whatever research that you and I do, it must bear a bearing towards the application of towards the community. that we are living in. For example, I want to know whether during this COVID-19, whether the online learning is effective. So I do a survey. After doing the survey, I found out the result is it is effective, or 80% of them find, for example, well and good. So what do I do next? Then that results, then it is very much applied in the sense that the institution concerned now can develop greater programs online so that it can meet the needs as the research has said. Of course, you can't rely on one research. You have to rely on many, many research. But then applied research gives you practicality. Applied research gives you the insights. Applied research gives you the relevance. So you may be doing a research, but what's the use of doing a research when it's not relevant to the community, right? It's not relevant. Like recently, I did research on the villages in Cambodia, right? And looking at financial literacy and microfinancing. So what happened is that it was observed, because the reason at the backdrop of this particular research was the Cambodian government was facing a humongous amount of non-performing loans taken by the villagers. So it's something like 5 to 6 billion USD, billion USD. So what is the problem? So we dived into the research and we discovered that it is several factors, meaning the villagers are not literate in what they are signing. They just want the small little loan to buy fertilizer and seeds, but not knowing that they're supposed to repay. And this was not clearly explained. Secondly, the microfinancing companies are not equipped to train them, to train the villagers. And because they are trying to meet their particular target goals. So you notice that that's the reason why the debt was humongous. So this research will help the particular regulatory body how to streamline and how in future sort of reduce this particular debt over time. So applied research is important, especially in today's scenario. Now, in globally, the research will say that 67% of international business, especially in the West, is based on research. Is based on research. I'll come to a point later, and in my second lecture later on to see how the collaboration will work. Then you find the research process. I'm sure you all know this, but the question is, first of all, before we even identify a problem, before when looking at the literature, we got to look at what topic are you going to choose? What is the topic of interest? Sometimes the topic of interest will be fine, but there's not enough material, not enough journals, not enough articles for you to do the research, because perhaps it's a new area. For example, let me give you an example. I'm doing a conceptual paper now on neurogovernance. Now, neurogovernance is the combination of neurology and the corporate governance system. So how do directors make decisions based on neurological evidences? But there are not many journals. That's the reason it is called a conceptual paper, because something new, something that is not yet discovered. Perhaps in the West is so much, but in our region is very much little. In other words, if the director that is chosen has previously over the several decades, or even in his childhood, has certain wrong behavior that is buried in his subconscious mind. So when he becomes a director to make a decision, this subconscious mind will react, and you find that unethical practices could be applied. So therefore, you can say, even he's a director, how can he do that? But then you will look carefully, it's because of his neurological input. Now, of course, we can't be saying, can we send all the directors all over the world for a neurological examination? Of course, that is not possible. But what I'm saying, in this research, there is a relationship. Then after that, you got to look at what is the gap are you trying to address? You know, sometimes you can see there is a gap, but the gap has to be fully justified. Now, many of the research now is moving away from geographical gap. For example, let us say that I'm studying about student behavior in your city of Palembang, and perhaps you come up with a paper that you're looking at the consumer behavior in the district of Palembang in this period of COVID. But for publication of high-tier journals, such kind of geographical gap is not so much, very much welcome. Why? Is because, let's face it, in every city you will have a gap. So can you say that is a high-level journal will accept that? The answer is no. But what they will accept is, what is the robustness of the particular research? What kind of analysis are you doing? Secondly, how does it apply to the community? Your research must apply to the community. So that is crucial now, the application. So when you do a research, it must be applied. But then you may say, hey, who is going to listen to me? I'm just there to pass the master's program, to pass the PhD program. You know, I'm not really bothered to whether is it applied or not. But that is not the lenses that you use to do research. When you come into research, you must make sure that, or you should make sure that at least it is applied. Of course, the application may not be overnight. It has to take a process. But at least there is a door open for application, right? Application. Like, for example, World Bank going on doing a research on how to improve the particular agriculture in parts of Africa. How can they improve irrigation? So they do a research, and then they apply the findings of the research and then improve on the irrigation system for the farmers. Now that is application. Like, for example, I'm sure there's so many needs in your city. There's so many needs even back in Malaysia and parts of the world. So if we were to look at this particular area and then apply it, right, from the research point of view, then you find that it makes true sense. Then of course you have the research design, the formulation, and of course the analysis. Now, choosing a topic. The topic must be chosen based on extensive reading, and that is another issue. I supervise several students, in fact quite a lot of students, and this is one of the issue. The issue is that excuse me, they don't really read much. And when they don't really read much, how can you justify that your topic has not been done before or has been done in another jurisdiction? How would you know? And I know even PhD students coming and telling me that they only read about 20 journals. That is not sufficient, right? Unless, of course, there is the journals that the topic that it's hardly any journals around. Then you got to now reassess whether you're looking at a conceptual paper or you have to change your topic. So therefore, in management and finance, you find that there are practically a lot of materials out there for you to read. And you got to read. The more you read, the doors are open, and you'll be able to analyze and think even deeper. Okay, identify a problem. You know, some students come and tell me, look, I read 5 journals, the latest journals, and I find that this is the gap. That is not sufficient. I'm not saying the more you read, the better. I'm saying that whatever relevant reading, you must read extensively so that you can able to debate. And that will give you a good a foundation when you do your literature review, because the problem must be supported by literature, and it must go beyond geographical, right? So therefore, it has to embrace new knowledge. That means your identifying of your gap must be able to contribute something new to the body of knowledge. If it doesn't, right? If it doesn't, like for example, the behavior pattern of expenditure by consumers during the COVID. Okay, you did a survey and you find that people are looking at only essentials. They are not purchasing on luxury goods. So what does that mean? It means, what does that mean? There's example, you are a company to market your product and you see this kind of research. Now, what would you do as a company? How would you apply that research? Right? That means you got to change your paradigm of your goods. You got to now address so that the normal buyer or the consumer will be able to be attracted, right? So how do you use that? For example, how do you change the paradigm from a luxury good into a goods of essentiality? How do you do that? How do you change that? So therefore, perhaps you're looking at revamping of production lines, revamping of marketing strategy, pricing mechanisms, right? Publicity. So you're looking at a load of supply chain effects. So therefore, the problem that you identify should be something new that you got. For example, you find that perhaps the consumer behaves differently, and you find that those with families are focusing on essentials, but those who are unmarried, they are also tapping into certain discounted luxury items. And this is something that is a different behavior pattern. And then why is this happening? Is it because of the millennial approach? Because the millennials today, the young people today, are more open to certain kind of items, goods and services. Whereas the older generation, they may not be open, but the new ones who open, does that mean that the particular consumer behavior in that particular town has been changed or has been demographically altered? Because the population of old and young, the young have outshined the population of the old, meaning that now new items or certain branded products can be sold. So all these things are identifying so that it will lead to a particular solution. So therefore, your identification of the problem in a research is extremely important. It's extremely important, right? Recently, I published a paper on budgeting practices among SMEs. Now, I found out that the SMEs in Malaysia really do not rely on budgeting practices. Why? Because they do not know how to budget, and many of them are smallholders. So smallholders, SMEs, they are just trying to survive day by day, right? So therefore, that's the reason now budgeting practices are not really applied. And you find that especially in the area of family-owned kind of SMEs, right? So all these things are crucial, because when the regulatory bodies look at this and they find that, look, there's something that they have to do about, perhaps training, perhaps educating these SMEs to know the importance of budgeting. Now, recently you find with the COVID, there is humongous amount of companies closing down, and some companies are retrenching workers. I do not know about the situation in Indonesia, but in other parts of the world, it is, companies are are retrenching workers and things like that. Some of them are cutting wages. Now, the question is then whether are they ready to meet this kind of sudden change. So therefore, you notice that with this kind of research, it will help corporation, it will help institutions to readdress what they are doing, right? To readdress where are we. And research is a wonderful thing. And when you do research, you must do it with the heart, not with the mind, but with the heart. Why? Because research is more than the mind. It deals with the heart. You must love doing research. If you don't love doing research, then research becomes a pain. It becomes a pain. It says, oh, I have got to meet my deadline. My supervisor is chasing me. I got to submit and things like that. So it becomes a pain. It doesn't become a joy. So you have to approach research with a joy. Yes, there are hurdles. Yes, there are problems. But the moment you look at it positively, these obstacles becomes opportunities. These obstacles are no more obstacles, but an invitation for you and I to improve. Now, either is it an exploratory research, either is it a descriptive research, or either is a causal research. For example, you want to explore the behavior of consumers in COVID, or you want to explore whether companies are having proper working capital during COVID. So it's an exploratory study. Now, normally exploratory study is something new, something people have not really dealt with, or the angle, the approach that you're doing is a bit new, right? Of course, every research must contribute something new, but this one is you are exploring. That means to say that others have not really thought about this, so you are exploring. Why you are exploring? There's not much articles in this area, so it's something new. For example, I published a Scopus journal on the quantum governance. What I mean by quantum governance? Quantum governance is where the area of quantum science in physics, how is it blended in corporate governance of today? Right? That means to say that rather than following a methodological approach in corporate governance should take a different paradigm in looking at a holistic view, whereby exercising quantum governance. Now, that was an exploratory research, right? For example, you want to know, perhaps you want to find out whether the allocation of retained earnings by corporations, whether are they really retained earnings or in cash, or are they basically just a book figure? And you can look at various industries, right? So therefore, do they have sufficient cash flow? When you say the retained earnings, say, is 10 million, do you have really 10 million? Or is the 10 million translated into certain assets? So where is the 10 million? So there is also an exploratory study, because many companies today are just having retained earnings 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 2 billion, 3 billion, but the money is not in the retained earnings. It is caught in some other assets. So if they have solid cash in retained earnings, then well and good. But then many companies don't have that reflection. So when it comes to times of crisis, that's where they said, oh, we better retrench staff because we don't have money. But in your books, you already written you have 20 billion as retained earnings. So where is the money? Right? So these are exploratory research. Then you have descriptive research. What kind of people are buying your product? During COVID, what kind of products are being sold in the market? Is it just essential goods, or is it luxury goods? Right? Even for that matter, automobile. What sort of automobile are being bought during this COVID? Right? And why is that so? Right? Why is that so? Like, for example, Johnson & Johnson wanted to have this shower gel being sold in India many years ago. That's happened about 30, 40 years ago. And they were having this shower gel that you can press, and then the shower gel comes out, and and you have a nice shower. But then they found out that the sales was not picking up. So what happened? They conducted research. They conducted research all over India, and they found out that at that time, the people would prefer a bar soap rather than a shower gel. Not because they do not know how to use, but I noticed that there's more wastage at home using a shower gel than a bar soap. So what happened? Johnson & Johnson converted everything into bar soap and the sales picked up. And why is that so? Because they have done a research. And only by doing a research, you will know the consumer behavior. If you don't do a research, then you won't know. It's a simple thing, shower gel and bar soap. So now, India, you find that bar soap is very much famous. And because the reason is that there's a lot of wastage in Indian families when they use shower gel. Right. So you notice that these are the application of such research. And then you have causal research. Right. Like you see, if you were to reduce your costs, what is your implication on your profits? Let me give you an example. There are several research being shown that they found out that an increase in price has a better positive effect on profits compared to reduction of the same value in cost. For example, a $1 of reduction in cost has a lesser impact on profits compared to a $1 increase in revenue. So later in my third session, I will talk about traditional view versus current view. So I hope you can attend the third talk later on. So I don't want to confuse. I'm doing 3 talks today, so I don't want to confuse. Yeah, so many talks and all that. Now literature review again. You got to read the relevant literature. Of course, students come and tell me, sir, I can't get the right literature. I don't have enough literature. That's where you have to go back. If you're attached to an institution, the institution must subscribe for top journals, Emerald, EBSCO's, Scopus journals, so that it will provide a good base for the students to read up such kind of journals. The more you read, the better you are. But read that which is relevant to your topic. And you got to review the literature. For example, I want to look at, say, for example, the pattern of whether companies today uses data analytics. So I go around the companies, I take the top 50 companies in public listed companies by asset size, and I go around and I start to evaluate whether how much of data analytics do they use in their day-to-day operations. So I go around. So in that case, I must fish out literatures that are relevant to the area of data analytics. Right? And also, what are the theories behind? So by having that, I will be able to already get some of the reasons in that literature why companies are not using data analytics. For example, in that literature, I noticed that companies are looking at cost factors, because data analytics means hiring data scientists, hiring perhaps the right kind of people, and also getting the software. So companies don't want to invest. So that is one of the reasons. But is that reason applicable to your area in your analysis of 50 top listed companies in public listed companies in your stock exchange in your area? Perhaps your area is Indonesia. Is that findings from that literature relevant to you? Maybe it's not relevant. Maybe it's not the cost, but maybe it's the knowledge to use data analytics. How do they use? You see, many companies, they have the money, but then they may not have the relevant expertise to train, right? And the appreciation of that data science. Like some online companies today, they give a lot of data science. For example, you want to upload, for example, this particular pen. I want to upload and market this pen, right? So I use an online and I jump into the online, I register. And this online platform gives me a lot of data analysis. Like, for example, they the competitors. For example, what kind of pens are around and who are the people buying these pens and what is the pricing level for each pen. Now, so that means to say that these are the particular data science. Now, I must appreciate this information and I must use it. Now, many people go into online and disregard this data science. So when they disregard, they find that how come my product is not being sold? How come this pen is not being sold? I've done so many, but then if you were to refer to the data science, they will tell you what are the current situation. And this will give you idea how to strategize in selling your product. How do we strategize? So many of them do not appreciate, and those who appreciate are the ones who do well. Those who appreciate this data, this richness of this data, they will do well. Why? Because you notice that they analyze, they sit down, they think, now how do I reposition in selling my product? And of course, your literature preferably should be 10 years and below, preferably, unless you're doing a debate on theoretical evidences and all. So that could be longer than that. Right? Focus the search. The narrower the search, the better. The narrower your topic, the better. Right? Why? Because it will be very much focused, very much feeling the need. For example, there's a research now somebody is conducting on the degree of happiness among college students using online. They want to now gauge or measure the degree of happiness. Are you happy in doing online program? Right? So it has not been done before. So they have worked up all the literature and they're very focused. Focused in what? Only on college students or university students, and only in this area of a particular area, particular city. And then to know the degree of happiness, right? And then they broke down into year 1, year 2, year 3 students of the university level. So it's very focused. Only this degree of happiness, that's it. All right? It's a very simple research, the degree of happiness among students using online. Now, this research is an ongoing research. So it's very thorough, right? It has to be systematic, right? And also, you notice that it has to be, you have to basically note down initially when you do a lot of these readings, you got to write down summaries and write down, yeah. Sometimes you find that we are so easy by taking photo in our camera, but we don't write down. According to psychologists, when you write, you remember better. Yeah, when you write, you remember better. Right. So when you write, you must have a critical view. There must be a critical analysis of the literature review. You can't just write so and so is saying this, then so and so is saying this, so and so in 2010 says this, so and so in 2017 says this. No. You've got to have a debate. When you have a debate, then even the publishers will find it interesting, because that means it looks like you are mirroring the efforts of extensive reading that you have done, and you understand the topic inside out. So if you don't do a debate, you don't critically analyze, you notice that your depth of your research and the quality of your research will be very much lower if you do not do a critical analysis, right? But for you to do a critical analysis, you must have read a lot. Then only you can do a critical analysis. Otherwise, you cannot do a critical analysis. For example, let us say that in 2010, this researcher said that CSR activities does contribute to the profitability. That happened in Germany in 2010. Now you are doing something within your locality, right? So you can say that in 2010, this person has said this. However, in 2012, the contrary happened in this country, where CSR was found to not to contribute to the bottom line. The reason is being, dash, 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 dash. And then you find out how, and then similar research was done in Thailand in 2015, and likewise in 2017 in Taiwan. And you find that both this has contributed to the bottom line, but over a period of 10 over a period of 10 years or 15 years. So you are looking at a deeper level of literature. Some students come and say, sir, I just read the introduction and I read the conclusion. Is that enough? No, it's not enough. You got to read the entirety of the journal paper, not by just reading the introduction and the conclusion. No, that is not sufficient. You got to analyze each paper. That is the reason why research takes a long time. Research cannot be done just like that. It takes a long time. But let me tell you, after some time, you get used to, after reading so many journals, hundreds of journals, you know already where to find and you know what to do because you have already got that experience. But initially, you got to invest your time on reading and to analyze what is the writer saying. What is the writer saying compared to this writer? Right? This one is said in 2010 in Germany. This one is in Thailand in 2015. What are they saying? How is these two research different? Although the topic is very similar. They want to find CSR implication on profitability. Now, this guy is being 2010, and he only uses his sample size, say, private companies. Whereas in Thailand, they're using public companies. But public companies, they're only looking at government-linked companies, for example. So that means in your literature review, you can debate this. You can debate this very vastly, and the publishers will appreciate that because you are having a great in-depth knowledge on your area of research. Now, of course, you have the subtopics of each literature review, and of course, please link those theories. You have to be very careful. In everything that we do, there's a theory. In everything that we do, there is a theory. So what is your theory that you're looking at, right? For example, in corporate governance, you have agency theory, stakeholders theory, you have stewardship theory, right? You have resource dependency theory. So these are the theories. It's not that the more theories you do, the better, but what are the theories that are relevant to your study? And every study has a theory, and you can't ignore this theory. Yeah, you cannot ignore this theory. Building hypothesis is basically we are doing a quantitative analysis, right? But as I said, critical review is crucial. Yeah, critical review is crucial, and then you have to make sure that your literature review builds up in highlighting the importance of your gap. Say, for example, you have read about 70 journals, and the 70 journals tells you about so many things about this topic, but then it does not address the topic that the gap that you are looking at. It means that the reader is convinced that you have done a lot of reading to ensure to come up with that gap. So you can't simply say, oh, there's the gap, right? So you have to build up. It's a building up. Building is like building all the building blocks must be ready to highlight that this is the problem that you are looking at in your research. And that makes publication ever more interesting because you have built up a case. You have built up a case. Now, students come and tell me always, sir, I got no time. Where can I have time? Well, we all don't have time. We all have 24 hours in a day. But how come some people can do more than others? So therefore, you have to have time management. And we have to look at discovering, even to search the journals takes time. If you were to ask your supervisors, they will tell you the same. Searching journals will take time. So it's not like, you search one journal, fine. No, it takes time. Sometimes it takes you days to get several journals. But then that is the beauty. That's the reason why research has to be approached with the heart, not with the mind. Because with the heart, you will have the tenacity to carry on. to search and to search and to search. And the research question, okay, yes, so what, why, when, how. Your research question must be able to address the problem or the phenomenon. Your research question must address. So your findings will address your research question, and your research question will address your problem. So that's the reason why the definition of research, as I said earlier in slide number 1, is a systematic collection. Why is it systematic? Because your research question will address your research objective, and your research objective will address your problem statement. So it is hand in hand, yeah? Is hand in hand. That's called systematic collection. So if your research question is not clear, then your findings will address your research case question that is not clear. Hence, your problem statement has been shortchanged. You are not able to fully comprehend your research problem. Okay, I think I have a little bit more time. Yeah, okay. Right, quantitative, it is hypothesis. You are doing quantitative, right? But there's so many other kind of research. Later in part 2 of my lecture, today you will see other kinds of research, right? I know many statistical students love to do this, hypothesis. Then they use SPSS or PLS to get their information and all that, you know. Well, that is fine, but then to have more robust kind of research, you got to do a mixed method. And today, mixed method is the hype. But let me pre-warn you, mixed method will take more time because you got to do quantitative and qualitative. So both of which you are doing, it will take time. So sometimes students are challenged with time. Oh, sir, I don't have time. You know, sir, I have to submit this. So just let me do a quantitative and settle it, you know. But then again, are you doing a research with a heart? Do you love doing research? Right? So all these questions you need to beware. Of course, please don't let me discourage you. But this is the journey that I went through, and I went through a very difficult journey because there was nobody to teach me on research. So so therefore I had I thank God that I had a very good supervisor to help me. So, and then I learned from her, and I also learned from my practical. You know, I read so many journals for my thesis and all that, many few hundreds. Every time it's few hundreds. But I learned one thing. I learned the more I read, yes, the more confusing I became. More confused I became, and I was very much in a blur. Nevertheless, as I began to collate my thoughts and sit back, I realized that is added in my knowledge and my approach to that subject. That's the reason now when I was told to defend my paper, I was able to defend. Why? Because of the extent of this reading that which has been captured in the thesis as well. So it's important that you are well read, yeah, to know the various approaches that is being used. You know, design the study. What is your design like? Your theoretical framework. Which are the independent variable and which are the dependent variable? Right. So what are the variables are you looking at? And how do you intend to have that in a relationship? So that is important for you to ascertain that. In every research, there is a particular framework. Yeah, framework. Okay. Do not be worried that I will have some time for questions and answers. Yeah. So you can always ask as many questions. So we are here to share. So in asking questions, that's where we learn. Yeah. So don't feel shy to ask questions later on. Okay. So I will try my best to finish even a little bit earlier so that giving chance for you to ask questions. Yeah. So do not feel afraid. Do not feel shy. Right. We are here to help. And I'm here to help. And I feel so much humbled to be with you. Right. And your willingness to spend this morning with me. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Your research strategies. See, there's so many kinds of strategies are you looking at? A mixed method approach. And I've highlighted a few, right? Like case study. Case study means very much relevant to a particular scenario, very focused. For example, the company wants to increase production. How do they do it? So they call you to do a research, right? And I must say, in this part of the world, in our region, companies do not call many universities to do research with them. Maybe they are afraid of data being leaked out, but only in the area of science, sometimes they ask research to be done. But in the West, in America, in UK, in Australia, in Canada, companies are always in collaboration with universities to research in their area, how to improve, for example, productivity, how to improve marketing strategies. So these are all case studies. You look at one particular case, one particular company, and how do you improve? And that is always in relation to action research. For example, companies like, for example, Colgate comes to you and said, look, I want to redesign my labeling or my packaging. Can your university students help me in this research? Okay, they fund the research. After funding the research, they found out a particular color that draws attention to consumers in this part of the region. So they start to implement the research findings. And then what is meant by action research? The same scenario, what they do, they do another follow-up research on the feedback of what they have implemented. That is action research. That means you do a research, you have a solution, then you do another research to justify whether that solution is correct. I repeat, you have a gap, a particular case study, a gap, where you do a research and you have a finding, and the company implements this finding, and then you do another research on that findings to see whether is it concretized, whether is it concrete, whether is it very much so the action research is a follow through, right, on that particular action. That means what it means, it reaffirms. And then you find that maybe at that time you did 1 year ago, this is the finding, but this year you find that the people are not so receptive for this kind of packaging. That means it's time for you to, perhaps the company, to revisit what sort of packaging now. Maybe you find that it works in Jakarta, but it doesn't work in certain other cities, right? It doesn't work in certain other cities. So now what do you do? So the companies will say, look, okay, can we re-strategize in this packaging? Maybe in certain areas, the packaging should be different. So these are action research, very much applied. Yeah? Then you have the archival research, is basically you're looking at literature review, right? Looking at perhaps models in the past that is being used. Ethnography is very much culture-based, tribal-based in that particular culture, right? Mostly for social science, yeah. And you notice that grounded theory is looking at new theories, the development of new theories, and now normally grounded theory takes a lot of time, yeah. And then of course you have experimental research where you experiment, and that is basically, that's what we are doing. Basically, we are experimenting whether this particular behavior, what sort of behavior does the consumer is exhibiting during the period of, for example, COVID, right? And mixed method is where using quanti and quali, and this triangulation. What do you mean by triangulation? Now, let me give you a simple example. For example, I want to have consumer behavior during COVID in the city of Palembang, right? among the youth age 18 to 30. Then I take the same yardstick of 18 to 20 and I do a same data collection in the city of Medan. That is triangulation. That means I'm saying I'm having the same articulation of boundaries, but then the geographical cities change from Palembang to Medan, right? So the reason is because I want to see whether the behavior pattern in both these young people between age of 18 to 30 in Palembang exhibits the same character in Medan. And if not, why? So these are the triangulation that I'm doing. Yes, it takes more time, it takes more funding, it takes, because you have to travel there, you got to get somebody there to do the data collection. But then it is worth it, yeah, it is worth it. And it's always a practical approach to broaden your particular depth of your research. And phenomenological is basically descriptive, subjective. You're looking at certain the phenomenon. That means you're looking at a certain particular issue, and it's very much different from positivism. Positivism is very direct, very objective. This one is very subjective. For example, you may look at how does the behavior of work at home during COVID among families, what is the behavior pattern? Now, I'm sure some of you would have read that during the work from home, there are many, several abuses at home. Domestic violence has been exhibited during the work at home scenario in many parts of the world. Why is that so? That is a phenomenon. So you're going to study that phenomenon. So it's very subjective, and most of that is done in a qualitative manner, right? Right. Samples. The sample that you choose must be relevant, and the sample must radiate a representation of the population, right? It must radiate. It must radiate. For example, I'm taking the young people, 18 to 30 years old, right? I'm taking these young people. But then in the city of Palembang. So therefore, these young people are my sample, but the city of Palembang has maybe, I do not know, maybe 2 million of young people, for example, 2 million. But my sample size is only 50. Or my sample size is only 20. Is it representative? How do we know? Go back to the study by, just let me give you a few slides. I think it's here. Yes, by Craigie and Morgan. Craigie and Morgan gives you a table on the sample size. And basically you're looking at 30% if it's a small population, 10%, and large population, maybe 1%. Right? 1%. So therefore, you are looking at a sample, and the sample should be very much representative. For example, you can't be taking young people 19 to 30 years old, young people who are on the higher, parents of whom are of higher income level. Then your behavior pattern is different. So your distribution of your sample must be very much equal among all strata of the community, among all strata. It can't be just one particular strata. That means your quality and the depth of your sample is not there, unless you're going to change your topic to say the behavior pattern of young people in Palembang of whom the parents of high income. Then your problem statement will change. Your research objective will change, and your research question will change. So you're sampling. Now, of course, students come and tell me, it's so difficult to get, how can I go around and getting the sample? Well, like some of them, they do Google form. But let me tell you, Google form, you got to have a very, very large sample. Why? Number one is the reliability of the Google form. Who is the one who's filling up? How do you know is that person is filling up? Maybe he gives his brother or sister to fill up while he's taking a shower. Yeah, it happens, huh? It happens. Then you find that what is the reliability of this particular Google form? How many of them come back with this Google form? You send to 100, maybe 20 reply you. So when you do Google form survey, it has to be a large sample. How large? If the population is 100,000, your sample should be easily about 40 to 50,000. Why? Because you must understand that the reliability and the validity of the data, because you do not know who is filling up unless you go personally and you give up the form and they fill up in front of you. Then you can look at a greater validity, right? Right. The analysis, what tools are you using? Then again, you got to refer to your literature reviews. What tools did the previous researchers who published journals in this area use? Maybe the tools that they use may not be accessible to you. You know, sometimes they use certain tools that in our region we don't have. Doesn't matter. But most important is that what are the findings that they have discovered? Can you find other findings in your particular research using your particular existing tool? And let me inform you, it's good to use more than one tool. Why? Because then your extent of your research becomes deeper. For example, you're using SPSS and you're also using PLS. So that gives you a good breadth on your particular findings, right? Remember, they are trying to discover something new, not only to address your problem statement, but something new that within the body of knowledge. And that is crucial, yeah? That is crucial, right? Does it answer your research question? Right. Sometimes you find that the answer is the same than previous research. Then you are not really getting something that is new. Then you got to revisit again. Revisit your problem statement. Revisit your research objective again. Say something new. That is crucial, yeah? That's the reason why reading is very, very important to establish your problem statement. Otherwise, you find that your findings is same as other researchers. Now the question is then, what's the use of you spending so much of time in doing your research when you find the findings are the same, right? Findings are the same. So something new, something different, something of greater depth. Let me give you an example. I did a research 2 years ago on the extent of blended learning. We are using blended learning at Sunway, meaning that during the face-to-face lecture, we introduce tools like Kahoot and videos and self videos, things like that, so that to enhance the learning experience. That happened before COVID, yeah, before COVID. So what happened is that we have been doing that for the last 3 years. So we wanted to know whether there is what are the perception of the students? Do they really like this blended learning, or are they just fed up? So we got the result of 85% saying that they love this blended learning approach. Well, okay, that's fine. That also is in tandem with previous research done in other institutions across Malaysia and across the region. But I was not interested much on that. I want to know something new. And this is where I discovered the balance 15%. 85% says, okay, but the 15%, this is what I wanted to learn. They came out to say that things like lecturers are using the same tools, so we are bored. The other one is saying that lecturers do not explain after using the tool. And sometimes lecturers use YouTube. 50% of the time, if we understand, the other 50%, they are talking about something else that is out of the chapter. So therefore, that means what? That means I take back this and then now relate this to the academics to say that, look, these are the findings. While everybody, 85% of students are happy, but then there are areas that we can improve. Yeah, we can improve to say that, look, we don't simply fish out videos from YouTube, but we really go through, or we use self videos. We use different software tools to help in their understanding to be effective. We reassess all our tools from time to time. So these are the new findings that I've discovered. While we are happy, 85% of them likes blended tools, but what new? What new? How can I improve my teaching? How can I make my teaching more interesting? You see, these are the elements of something new, right? Something new. Now you're writing, and you find that the basic thing is that the writing to highlight what is new that you have found compared to previous literatures, something new, some patterns that you're looking at. Like today's millennials, so they want everything instantly. They want immediate gratification, right? So how are you going to reassess? Like, for example, you find that you are given assignments now. You find that they prefer either to work in group, but some students prefer to work alone. But what is your idea in giving group assignments so that they will be interactive, so they'll be able to understand each other, right? So they can able to blend with different characters, because when they go to work, they'll be blending with different characters. So when you do the research involving them, say, how can we improve the assignment? So what is new that can be brought about to improve the assignment at the same time to meet the learning outcomes? Of course, there is, I'm sure you already know the deductive approach and the inductive approach, right? Where most of us, we do a deductive approach. We base on a theory and come, unless we are doing grounded theory, where we find that it will be from observation to development of a theory. Yeah. So that is the inductive approach. I'm sure you have gone through this as well. Right. At the same time, these are sort of a chart, right? Is there sufficient time? Yes, you can carry on. Is there information already at hand? You have literature reviews, you have literature ready, right? Then it's yes, you can carry on. Is the decision of considerable strategic or tactical importance? Is the gap important to be addressed? If yes, does it create value, right? Then you can conduct the business research, right? But if it's no, then you do not conduct. For example, if you don't have enough materials to do your research, how are you going to conduct an effective research? At the same time, it doesn't create value. It has to create. How do you create value? Applied research. Applied research creates value. Applied research creates value. Right? This is a research stage. I have emailed my slides to Dr. Muhammad Ishan. So later you can get it from him. And this is basically the cycle of research process, right? The cycle of research. It's a very systematic way of doing it. Systematic way to do it. Right. Thank you very much. And so I'm so happy to be with you. And please do not feel shy. Do not feel shy to ask questions. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. Now, I'm opening the floor for Q&A, right? And thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benedict, for the great presentation. What a great topic. Here's some summary of his material that the research process start with identify a problem or idea, and then review the literature and theories, identify the gaps or edge to address, formulate research question from hypothesis, design the research study, conduct the research study, analyze the findings, and the last one, make decision and report findings. I think this is a great topic, and I'm sure the participant will ask a question. I will open the discussion forum for the participant who want to ask a question or discuss with our speaker. You can write in chat or raise a hand in the Zoom platform. Is there any question for the participant? Maybe for participant, the student of the master degree process for the final thesis. Okay, from Mrs. Isni Andriana PhD, you can ask directly to Dr. Benedict. The time is yours, Mrs. To Mrs. Isni Andriana PhD, we beg your willingness
sorry,
to.
Okay. Miss Dr. Iksan.
Thank you so
Actually,
much.
I already sent the chat for Dr. Benedict. I'm interested with the quantum governance that you explained it before. It's quite new, not quite new. It's really new that I hear about quantum governance. And would you like also to explain, because a lot of you here is a student, the differences between the primary data and the secondary data? Because sometimes among the lecturers, even they always have a different opinion about primary data and secondary data. Thank you, Dr. Iksan.
Thank you, Dr. Isni. Thank you so much. That is a very good question. First of all, let me address the second part first, the primary and the secondary. Primary is very much an empirical data, meaning that it is you're conducting the data. So your primary research will be basically, for example, you are doing that particular research fresh. You are doing the research fresh. That means you are going to do the interview, you are doing the data collection. These are the primary techniques. Secondary data collection is from secondary sources. For example, published accounts. For example, articles. For example, you are doing a study of different models of corporate governance, for example. That is a secondary data. That means somebody else has already done it. You are taking it to see perhaps the differences of these models or the differences of this approach, right? So that is secondary. Primary is you are doing a fresh collection of data, Now, coming back to your first question on quantum governance. Now, our model that we approach in corporate governance is very much a Western approach. Now, a Western approach means that it's very much based on capitalism and is based on a reductionist theory, meaning the theory that went back 450 years ago by Newton, where it talks about a cause and effect theory, which is sort of cascaded into our education system, into all over the world, into our corporate structure as well. But then, in the decade of 21st century, such a traditional approach of reductionist cannot be applied as the world moves into globalization and into a dynamic business way of doing things, because a dynamic business system cannot use a traditional approach. That is the reason you have many wrong decisions, many corporate failures. Why? Because they are using a traditional approach. Now, what is this quantum governance? Quantum governance is basing like looking at a non-linearity side of business, meaning that whatever decisions that the board members make, whatever decision every employee make, it has a butterfly effect. It has an effect to influence every strata of the company and the community. For example, let's take Enron. Enron collapsed in the year 2001. Traditional approach says that Enron is the top company in the US, top energy company, and the fifth most largest company in the world. Now, what happened? They issued fictitious invoice, and when the company collapsed, about 4,000 workers are made redundant. Families are destroyed because of wrong decisions made by the directors. But in the year 2000 and 1999, prior to the collapse, it was the top company. What happened? Because of this area of greed that came in. Now, how does this greed came in? You're supposed to have ethical standards. What is happening? Why? Because the approach used is very much traditional, cause and effect, reductionist. People were just concerned about bottom line. Shareholders are just concerned about dividends. Nobody looked at the future, and every CEO that comes in, everybody just want to satisfy the shareholders' needs. But what happened? When it collapsed, it not only affected the employees, but it affected the whole reputation. And even Arthur Andersen had to close down the audit company, one of the top 5 audit companies at that time in the world. What does that mean? It means the approach. I went back to the fundamentals of the building blocks of corporate governance, and to say that it's time that we change the paradigm into quantum governance. This quantum science has already been used in business way back in 1995, but in the US and all these places, where the approach of managing companies now is no more the top-down approach, but is more of a holistic approach, where everyone in the company, in the organization is responsible, from the lowest level to the highest level. So it's a very holistic approach. And companies that adopted such kind of approach was successful and is successful right now. Why? Because the approach is different. So the fundamental approach is different. Then every employee will have a value. Every employee will feel that he or she has a value to the company. When you feel you have a value to the company, you will give your best. And that is governance. That is governance. Right? I'm doing another research on neuro governance. Means why directors make, or why companies make wrong decisions. That means it basically means that these directors has, every one of us have our background. So if our background comes from something that is of a different or negative approach, so when we come to this leadership kind of areas, we find that our subconscious mind begin to activate, and we make decisions based on our subconscious mind, although we can be educated to the highest level. Look at Enron. Enron, the board members are not just from an ordinary universities. They are from top universities in the world. Top universities. How can you let that happen? Again, neuro governance, the mind in terms of decision making. I hope I've answered your question, Dr. Isni. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, doctor. Thank you. It's really interesting because when it is connecting with the Indonesia nowadays, it is very interesting topic. Thank you, Dr. Iksan.
Thank you so much for Dr. Isni Adriana. And for Dr. Benedict, we have a second question from Mr. Genta Ramzuni. You can ask for our speaker directly. Oh, sorry,
Okay.
Miss Genta. I'm so sorry. You can ask a question directly.
Okay. Sir Benedict, thank you for your amazing presentation today. Actually, this is a very useful material for us as a student of Magister program at the University of Sriwijaya. Me, myself, my name is Ganta Ramzuni. I'm the Magister student of University of Sriwijaya, and I have one maybe just a simple question for you, sir. In order to do the research, which one is better? We do the research based on the recent phenomenon around us, or do the research based on the research gap that we found in our literature review? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Genta, for your question. Excuse me. It is basically it's important that you do a lot of reading to identify the gap. Unless, of course, sometimes the gap is, say, for example, you want to know the water supply problem in a particular village. Of course, there's not much of literature review for that particular village, but then you may have literature review, literatures for other villages in other countries. So that's the reason why you need to do a lot of reading to identify the gap. So that actions or that analysis will help you to further enhance your knowledge on how to approach your research. Right. For example, as I said, you want to know how are you going to improve the water supply in a particular village, in your village. Of course, there's no research being done. And you know it, isn't it? You know it, there's no research. But then to strengthen your gap, you got to now embrace other research in that area, in other villages across Asia, across Europe, across North America or South America, so that it will build the momentum of your gap. Yeah, so that is important. Why? Because for the reader and for publication purposes, the reader will be satisfied or comfortable that you have read enough, yeah, to say that yes, what you're doing, you are in the right track. Okay, thank you very much, Genta. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for Ms. Genta Ramzuni for the question, and for Dr. Benedict answer the question from Ms. Genta. Is there any question for this session? For the participant?
Yeah, please ask. Yeah, please ask as many questions as you can. Very
yes,
important.
because it's great opportunity for us.
Yes.
We can communicate with Dr. Benedict.
So I do not
precious moment.
Yeah, so I do not know when Dr. Ishan will invite me again. So
yes, immediately, sir. Immediately, we will invite you immediately.
So please ask. I'm here. Please ask. So we all don't worry. There's no such thing as a wrong question. Yeah, there's no such thing. All questions are beautiful questions.
Yes. Please do not shy. For the all participant.
And you have my email there if you want to send me an email for anything. So please, by all means, yeah, by all means. But only by sharing we learn, yeah. Only by sharing we learn.
Because sharing is caring, yeah, doctor.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Doctor, maybe can I ask again?
Yeah, sure, doctor.
So many questions from me. Doctor, maybe all the student here is feel confused about what they want to write for their thesis, maybe. So could you maybe give a tips or advice for them how to find a right topic?
Okay, thank you.
And a right gap for them.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. So how would you identify your topic? There's so many topics, thousands and millions of topics. But the question is, you got to ask your heart. Your heart says which topic? What is your heart is saying? Perhaps you say, look, I want to look at the, for example, income gap of communities within the district of Palembang. Then you go and do some reading. Doesn't matter. Maybe you may not find and you want to change your topic. Doesn't matter. But you got to start, right? Start. Or maybe I want to find the area of why certain industries are not coming to the district of Palembang. Only we have certain industries, right? So you may want to look at that. So do some readings. So it all starts with reading. And you once you start to reading, it will increase your curiosity. So research is curiosity. You must be curious. Why is that? So you go deeper. Then you talk. Of course, you talk unofficially with your friends and with your neighbors, with your relatives. You say, why only certain industries we have in Palembang? Why not other industries? Why we can't get the high tech industries to come to Palembang? Why? What is the problem? So they will talk to you. So you get some feeling, yeah? You get some feeling, and then you go back to literature, yeah? You read. Then you ask yourself again, okay, can I go on with this topic? Or can I have a different kind of approach here? So all this will increase your curiosity, but you got to start. You can't be saying, I'm confused, and finally the semester is over and you're still confused. Cannot. You see, so you must say, okay, now I'm going to decide, this is what my heart is saying. I want to know about consumer behavior, or I want to know about whether the COVID-19, what is the impact on the GDP growth, or what is the impact of profitability among companies within the Palembang district or within Indonesia, right? Or what is the impact of COVID-19 to companies like the glove company? The gloves company are doing marvelously well. The mask company is doing well. The sanitizer company is doing well. These are the three companies are doing very, very well. The rest of them are not doing so well, right? So you may look at what is the gap. Now the prices of gloves are soaring very high. So you may do a research or saying that is pricing an influential factor in the purchase of gloves during COVID, and who are buying the expensive ones? Or if that's the case, now what is the implication now? So the cost of medical supplies will go up, right? People are saying within the next 6 months, the demand for gloves is going to be soaring high. 6 months, But after that, they say will taper down, because by which time they should have found a vaccine. So therefore, it tells you that, look, there is some kind of a behavior pattern. Or is it so difficult to penetrate the glove market? Is it so difficult? You see, all these things are research. For example, also you're looking at, for example, the need of agriculture. My advice will be, try to look at applied research. How it can benefit your community? How it can benefit your community? For example, you want to improve the supply chain for a particular product, right? How are you going to improve? What are the gaps you're looking at? So narrow your gap. Sometimes the problems be very, very large. You can't solve the world's problem. You and I cannot solve the region's problem. But we can address one small area, because that is our limitation. One small area will do, right? One small, maybe you have discovered 5 gaps. You can't do all the 5 gaps, right? And sometimes 5 gaps sometimes needs funding, yeah? Funding, and I'm going to address that in my next lecture. So you just take one small gap, that is sufficient, right? And you got to do a lot of reading in that area. so that you can strengthen and understand. Sometimes you find, yeah, I want to, change my topic. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But again, what does your heart say? What are the areas that you're interested in? When I started my research journey, I really wanted to read or study on corporate governance because I've been working for the last 2 decades, and I found that companies are just, some of them are just not optimizing their resources. Secondly, they are shortchanging the consumers, some of them, and some of them are not allowing creativity skills. Then I looked at what can I do? What research can I do? Then I went to start reading. I started to read. Then I came to the area of corporate governance, because governance is the highest level. The board of directors is the highest level of decision making in a company. So I went to let me now look at corporate governance. Do the companies really understand what is corporate governance? And in my research, I found majority of them are just cutting and pasting from other Western kind of frameworks and adopting it and saying that, oh, we have all the corporate governance. Actually, you don't. And corporate governance should be culture based. You see, we can't simply adopt things from the West. While we respect the West, yes, it's fine, it's great, it's good, but you can't cut and paste to our Asian context. And many companies just cut and paste and becomes irrelevant because our culture is different, isn't it? Our cultures are different. The way we embrace corruption in Asia is different. It's different. So how do you define corruption in parts of Asia, and how do you define corruption in the West? So our understanding of corruption is different. Right. So for example, buying somebody dinner, do you consider that as a corruption or corruptive practice? But while in some quarters in the West may say, yes, that is a corruptive practice because you have ultimate motive. But in our part of the world, it's just a friendly dinner, that's all. So how do you interpret that? How do you interpret that? How do you, and in some cultures, whenever you visit some people, you got to bring some gifts. But that is their culture. But do you consider that as corruptive practice? You see, so there's so many views of looking at it. So you got to delve and dive into what interests your heart. Where is your heart talking about? What is your heart talking about? What are you really focusing at? Yeah, that is important. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe we have one question from YouTube platform, Doctor, from the participant from YouTube. When writing a paper, how many compositions we quote from newspaper or news media?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, thank you very much. Now, for academic writing, I repeat, academic writing, you are not encouraged to use newspaper article. Yeah, for academic writing. Why? Because it is not debated. Sometimes it could be an opinion, unless you are looking at certain scenarios. For example, you want to quote the GDP growth in Indonesia, and this newspaper article has a special column that talks about GDP growth, and that is confirmed by your Central Bank of Indonesia. That is fine. That is fine, right? And you got to quote certain reputed kind of bodies like the Central Bank of Indonesia reports. That is well and good. Your government sites, that is well and good. right? So these are the things that you can quote and you can refer. You can refer, and also your journals, reputable journals, right? When I talk about journals, I mean reputable journals. So there's so many journals in the Google today where there's no even title of the journal. They just write. So that one you cannot take. You can take only reputable journals. Normally, my advice is for students to take journals from Emerald, EBSCOhost, Scopus. These are the journals you're supposed to take from. Why? It is being reviewed properly, right? That's what you want. It's been reviewed, so your referencing also will be strong. And when you want to publish your paper, and when the reviewer looks at your references, he is very much encouraged to publish your paper, right? So I hope I've answered your question. Try not to use newspaper articles. Right, yes. And unless you have, like, for example, there's one particular paper I read where he quoted from the Economist magazine. Well, that is a very reputable, the Economist, or the Far Eastern Economic Review. That is credible, right? Credible. So other than that, any other newspaper article are not encouraged because it's not academically correct. Yeah. So I hope I've answered your question. Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Any other question, please?
Is there any question for the participant before we close the discussion forum? Okay, it's a great opportunity for us. We can ask a question to the expert one, Dr. Benedict. No more question? Okay, I think it's enough, Doctor, for this section. We learned so many things from our great discussion. Thank you so much for all participants and for our speaker. Thank you for discussion. Maybe Aming and Hajri say thank you to you for your attention and sorry for some mistakes. All I can say is wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please, Mrs. Lina Ramirez Siregar, the time is yours.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, finally, this is the last session of our webinar today. As your host today, I want to say thank you, Dr. Benedict, as our speaker. Thank you, Doctor, for your best presentation and contribution in this international webinar. And also thank you for all participants who have participated in this webinar. And we remind you to fill the webinar feedback questionnaire form. Your time is only about 30 minutes after the end of this webinar. And hopefully, all the information that we have shared today will be useful for all of us. Thank you again, and we will continue to make a picture documentation. So stand by on your camera. We will to make a screenshot for all of us. Please activate your webinar camera. Wait a moment. I will capture our webinar today. Okay, once again. Okay, enough. Thank you. Thank you again, and see you next time on our next webinar. Thank you, Mr. Benedict. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Ishan. So
Thank you, Doctor.
yeah, the next session is at 10:10. Your time?
Yes,
Okay,
10.
Yes,
10.
yes.
I will send the link immediately to your WhatsApp.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.